Hello folks, we're going to do a review for the first test for NAS. The study of body functions is that anatomy or physiology, or pathology or metabolism. The study of your body functions, such as how your gallbladder works, would be the physiology part. So the study of your body functions is the physiology part. The study of where the structures are and what they're called is the anatomy portion. The study of disease is called physiology, anatomy, pathology, or metabolism. The answer is pathology. The most suitable field of study for an anatomist is stomach cancer, anabolic reactions, the mechanism of protein digestion, or the structure of the stomach. For an anatomist, it would be the structure of the stomach. Dr. A is interested in the function of the inner ear. The field of study best suited to her interest is physiology, anatomy, pathology, or windsurfing. The answer would be pathology, or the best answer would be pathology. The reason being is because it wouldn't be just the function of the ear, it would be everything about the ear, so you would put pathology. There are numerous levels of organization in the body. The correct order from simplest to most complex is which of the following? So you're going from simple to complex. Would it be organ, tissue, cell, organism, system? Second choice, cell, tissue, organ, system, organism. Or system, cell, organ, organism, tissue. Or would it be cell, and then system, then tissue, organ, and organism? It's going to be hard for you to remember all of what I just said, so let me explain why the answer is what it is and what the answer is. The answer is cell, then tissue, then organ system, and then organism. Because if you put a bunch of cells together, you get a tissue. You put a bunch of tissues together, you get an organ. You put a bunch of organs together, you get organ systems throughout your body. And then you get the whole organism comprised of many organ systems together. So the answer is cell, tissues, organ system, organism. The system that transports blood to and from body cells is which system? Integumentary, skeletal, respiratory, or circulatory? And the answer is circulatory. The system that is comprised of bones and joints is the nervous system, immune system, muscular system, or skeletal system. The answer is skeletal system. As you go through here, if you don't want to hear the answer until you have time to make a choice, either by writing it down or thinking about it, just pause it. The next question. The term that describes all the reactions that sustain life. Would that be anabolism, catabolism, cannibalism, or metabolism? The answer would be metabolism. A reaction in which simple compounds are assembled into more complex compounds is most accurately described as. So you're going to build things up. Is that metabolic reaction, catabolic reaction, homeostatic reaction, or anabolic reaction? If you think about someone taking anabolic steroids, they're building muscle. So the answer is anabolic reaction. The breakdown of complex glycogen molecules into simple glucose molecules is most accurately described as a what? So you're breaking things down into smaller components. Would that be anabolic reaction, metabolic reaction, catabolic reaction, or homeostatic? It's going to be opposite of anabolism or anabolic, and it's going to be catabolic or catabolism. Which example demonstrates the principle of negative feedback? Negative feedback is when you have one thing increases, one thing decreases, or something decreases and something increases. It's opposites, if you think about it. That's the easiest way to think about negative feedback. So which one of these would be negative feedback? A decrease in blood sugar stimulates the release of a hormone that further decreases blood sugar. Well, it can't be that one because they both go down. A decrease in room temperature activates a thermostat, which further decreases heat output by a furnace. A rise in blood calcium levels stimulates the release of a hormone that lowers blood calcium levels. So you have a rise in blood level, amounts of calcium, which stimulates this hormone, and the hormone increases in amounts to decrease the amount of calcium. That's going to be your answer. The other possible choice on here was a rise in estrogen levels stimulates the production of a hormone that stimulates estrogen production. Those both increase, so that's not negative. So negative is if you put your hands and you put one hand up, like you're showing something going up, and you show the other hand going down, then you can show that they're opposite, and that's negative feedback system. The term that means farther away from the midline, is that lateral, medial, sagittal, or distal, or transverse? Further from the midline is lateral, and if you're closer to the midline, it's medial. The term that describes the position of the stomach with respect to the lungs. The stomach is going to be below the lungs. So the stomach is medial, anterior, dorsal, or inferior. If the stomach's below the lungs, it's inferior. The term that best describes the position of the elbow with respect to the hand. So the term that describes the position of the elbow with respect to the hand is medial, anterior, proximal, or inferior. This question could be kind of confusing whenever you listen to the question. So you're talking about your hand is going to be what compared to your elbow. So think about your elbow. Your elbow is going to be closer to your shoulder, and your hand's going to be further away from your shoulder. So your elbow is going to be proximal with respect to your hand. Usually on pictures, when you see distal versus proximal, they show an arrow going toward the shoulder, which shows proximal, closer to point of origin, and they show your fingers at the bottom, and they show the arrow going toward your fingers to show distal. So think proximal is in closer proximity, and distal is further away. The term that means nearer to the head, these terms you need to think about in terms of opposites. So would closer to the head be caudal, inferior, lateral, or cranial? The answer is cranial because cranial always means something to do with your head. Same thing as cephalic, always means something to do with your head. Caudal always has something to do with the tail or the feet. And inferior is below, and lateral is out to the side. So the answer is going to be cranial. A plane that divides the body into superior and inferior parts. So it basically divides it top versus bottom. Is that sagittal plane, transverse plane, frontal plane, or coronal plane? I posted a video on YouTube for this, and the answer is going to be transverse because it cuts it from top to bottom. A plane that divides the body into anterior and posterior parts is what? This is like front versus back. Is it sagittal, proximal, frontal, or mid-sagittal? This also was on the styrofoam head that I used as a prop and on the YouTube video. And it was the golf tees were on the top. And it was dividing the front of the head from the back of the head. And that's going to be frontal or coronal plane. The dorsal cavity contains which of the following? Spinal cord and lungs, brain and spinal cord, heart and kidney, or brain and reproductive organs. The dorsal cavity means the back. It means the same thing as posterior. So posterior body cavity or dorsal body cavity is going to be the brain and the spinal cord. Which of the following organs is not in the abdominopelvic cavity? Small intestine, stomach, lung, or liver. The one that's not down that low is going to be the lungs. And remember, the abdominopelvic cavity is the abdominal and the pelvic cavities together. Next question. The urinary bladder is located in which cavity? Thoracic, spinal, dorsal, or pelvic? Your bladder's down low, so it's not in the thoracic cavity. That would be near your chest. Spinal cavity is where your spinal cord is. Dorsal cavity is the whole back, so that's too broad of a statement. Pelvic cavity is exactly where your bladder is going to be. The most inferior medial region of the abdomen is which section? These are the regions. These are the regions where if you go down the side from your armpit down, you have HLI. So you have hypogastric near your armpits. Right down below that, you have your lumbar. Below that, you have iliac region. And then down in the middle at the bottom near your bladder, you have hypogastric. And then near your belly button, you have umbilical area or region. And then at the top in the middle, like where your sternum is at, you have the epigastric area. So the most inferior medial region of the abdomen is going to be the hypogastric area. And that's because you're talking about the abdomen and the most center part and the most inferior part. The iliac region of the abdomen is also called something else. It's called inguinal. So the inguinal or inguinal region is the region that's also called iliac, and that's the one that's going to be down near your groin. The anatomical adjective that describes the wrist is what? So your wrists are called what? It's the whole area, but it also happens to be the names of the bones. Is it pedal, plantar, tarsal, or carpal? It's going to be carpal is going to be your answer. Carpals are your wrist bones, and the whole wrist area in general is called carpal area. Pedal is going to be foot. Plantar is going to be the bottom of the foot. Tarsal is going to be the ankle. The anatomical adjective that describes the posterior leg is what? So you're talking about your posterior section of your leg, and you're specifically talking about the back of the leg. Is that crural, femoral, popliteal, or sural? There's some crazy cards that I posted on a PowerPoint to help you with these. Crural is going to be the bottom of the leg on the front. Femoral or femoral is going to be on the top of the leg where your femur bone's at, that whole section of your leg. Popliteal is going to be the back of your knee. And sural is going to be the back of your leg on the bottom, on the posterior section. This element is found in table salt. Iron, chlorine, carbon, or hydrogen. The answer is going to be chlorine because salt is sodium chloride. The element that makes up the greatest percentage of body weight is potassium, oxygen, sodium, or nitrogen. And the answer is oxygen. Think about it this way. You're made up mostly of water, and water is made of oxygen. An element needed to build bones is iron, calcium, chlorine, or nitrogen. The answer is calcium. A subunit of an element is an atom. So the choices were a subunit of an element is a mixture, a molecule, an atom, or a compound. And it's going to be atom. The positively charged particles in the nucleus of an atom is going to be neutrons, electrons, protons, or isotopes. Well, the positive charged particles are going to be protons. Neutral charges are neutrons, and negative charges are electrons. Protons and neutrons are in the nucleus, and the electrons are in the outer shells. The atomic number of phosphorus is 15. So how many protons does phosphorus have? 10, 12, or 15? It is 15. It's the same amount. So the atomic number is 15. The number of protons is 15. The atomic number of sodium is 11. The sodium ion has a single positive charge. How many electrons does the sodium ion have? It's going to have 10. A common isotope of sodium is called sodium-24. Based on its atomic weight, the atomic weight can be calculated by adding the number of protons and the number of neutrons. The atomic number of sodium is 11. So how many neutrons does sodium-24 have? So you have to take 11, and you have to figure out what you have to add to it to get 24, and you would have to add 13. So the answer would be 13. Cobalt has 27 electrons. So what is its atomic number? It's the same thing. It's 27. A combination of two or more substances that are not chemically bonded is a molecule, an atom, a mixture, or a compound. The answer is mixture. A substance composed of two or more different elements participating in a chemical bond is an atom, a mixture, a compound, or a solution. Well, you put two or more together, so you get a compound. A substance that dissolves in another substance is a solution, a solvent, a mixture, or a solute. I always tell students, pretend you got a bunch of money in a beaker. Somebody pours some hydrochloric acid in there and dissolves the money. Another word for money is loot, even though it's spelled different. So the loot gets dissolved. So the answer is solute. Which of the following is a mixture? Sugar water, table salt, hydrochloric acid, or sodium hydroxide? The answer is going to be sugar water because you're mixing those things together. When you dissolve it in it, it's also going to be a solution. A non-separating suspension can be described as inorganic, nuclear, covalent, or colloidal. And it's going to be colloidal. A mixture in which the compounds remain evenly distributed is suspension, compound, molecule, or solution. It's going to be solution. A chemical bond formed by the sharing of electrons is described as ionic bond, covalent bond. The answer is going to be covalent. Covalent bonds share electrons and makes them stronger a lot of times. A basic substance could have a pH of, so we're asking for alkaline or basic. What would be alkaline or basic? The numbers 0 on the pH scale, 6, 7, or 12. And the answer is going to be 12. pH scale ranges from 0 to 14. 7 is neutral, below 7 is acidic, above 7 is basic or alkaline. Which of the following is an organic compound? Salt, water, glycerol, or zinc? Organic compound is going to be glycerol. The chemical category then includes fats and cholesterol. So I'm asking you, fats, oils, waxes, steroids, cholesterol are all which of the following? Proteins, carbs or carbohydrates, solutions, or lipids? And the answer is lipids. Proteins are complex molecules composed of. So how do you make a protein? Do you put a bunch of calcium together, a bunch of glucose together, a bunch of water, or a bunch of amino acids? You put a bunch of amino acids together. The simplest form of a carbohydrate. You need to look at the prefix for this one. The simplest would be monosaccharide, polysaccharide, disaccharide, or unisaccharide. The most simple is monosaccharide. 2 monosaccharides would be disaccharide, and very complex would be polysaccharide. All enzymes are lipids, carbohydrates, or proteins. The answer is proteins. A hydrophobic substance, does it like water or hate water? If you're arachnophobia, you don't like spiders, so a hydrophobic doesn't like water. So listen to these choices. A hydrophobic substance mixes easily with water, repels water, is a colloid, or contains hydrogen bonds. It repels water because it doesn't like it, because it's a phobia. A substance that has a name ending in ASE is most likely a what? Lipid, carbohydrate, mixture, or protein? The answer is protein. The microscope with the highest magnification is the scanning electron, compound light microscope, simple light microscope, or transmission electron microscope. The big mamma jamma that can do the highest magnification, transmission electron microscope. The term that best describes the plasma membrane is solid, permeable, hypotonic, or selectively permeable. That bad boy is selectively permeable. It's going to decide what comes in and what goes out, like a bouncer. The major lipids in the plasma membrane are proteins and phospholipids, carbohydrates and proteins, phospholipids and cholesterol, or calcium salts and phospholipids. I'm asking you what kind of lipids make up the plasma membrane, and it's phospholipids with the head and the tail, and cholesterols. Which membrane protein changes shape to move substances across the plasma membrane? Channel, receptor, enzyme, or transporter? It's a transporter. Which membrane protein attaches cells to other cells? That's a linker, because it links them together. Which small nuclear body assembles ribosomes? Basically, this is asking you what makes ribosomes. There's a big glob inside the nucleus, and that makes ribosomes. So is that big glob inside the nucleus called mitochondria, centriole, the ER or endoplasmic reticulum, or the nucleolus? The answer is nucleolus. What organelle makes energy? Ribosome, Golgi, nucleolus, or mitochondria? The mighty mitochondria. Which organelle makes proteins? Nucleoli, mitochondria, or ribosomes? Ribosomes is the answer. If a cell lacked centrioles, it would not be able to do what? Make proteins? Make RNA? Make proteins? Or divide? it's not going to be able to divide. A particular cell type specializes in breaking down harmful byproducts of metabolism. The cell type would be high in concentrations of what? So it's going to basically break down harmful stuff. Would that be lysosomes, ER, centrioles, or peroxisomes? That's going to be peroxisomes. Just think about hydrogen peroxide. Of course, hydrogen peroxide can damage good cells too, so they tell you not to use that anymore. Of course, I grew up using lots of hydrogen peroxide when you had a cut. Two cells vary in the amount of energy they require. One cell, a muscle cell, must generate large amounts of ATP. The other cell, a skin cell, requires very little ATP. Based solely on this information, what would you see as the difference in something in those cells? Would it be the amount of lysosomes, vesicles, or mitochondria? Well, it has to do with ATP, and ATP is energy, so it would be mitochondria. Movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to low concentration is best known as active transport, filtration, pinocytosis, or diffusion. And the answer is diffusion. If you move fluid droplets into a cell, it takes in liquid, that's pinocytosis. So if you think little pin drops of water. Cells that require energy, or processes in your cell that require energy, is that active transport or passive transport. That's going to be active. If you use a protein to move stuff across the cell, then it's going to be facilitated transport or facilitated diffusion. When you move a substance across the plasma membrane from high to low concentration, that's going to be simple diffusion. If you use a carrier protein to help it, it's facilitated diffusion. If a cell shrinks because too much fluid goes out of it, is it hypertonic, hypotonic, or isotonic? The answer is going to be hyper, so think about being hyper and sweating and stuff going out and the cells getting smaller. A nucleotide contains a nitrogen base, a sugar unit, and a glycerol, fatty acid, or phosphate unit. It's going to be phosphate unit. The type of RNA found in ribosomes is tRNA, sRNA, mRNA, or rRNA. It's going to be rRNA because it's like ribosomal RNA. So think that RNA is rRNA, like a pirate. The process that ribosomes participate in is translation. So your ribosomes are involved with translation. Transcription involves the production of RNA. The correct order of the stages in mitosis is going to be PMAT. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. The phase of mitosis during which chromosomes pull apart and go to opposite ends is going to be anaphase. The phase of mitosis during which the chromosomes condense is going to be prophase. Prophase is where you get chromatin coiling into chromosomes, which is what that means. Osteocytes are to bone as chondrocytes are to cartilage. This basically means osteocytes are bone cells and chondrocytes are cartilage cells. You are studying a slide of body tissue, but the label has rubbed off. You are a single layer of closely packed cells that are long and narrow in structure. So would you be squamous? Would you be cuboidal or columnar? It's long and narrow, so it's going to be columnar. And it's single layered, so it's going to be simple. Which of the following muscle types is under voluntary control? Cardiac, skeletal, visceral, or myocardial? Well, you have control over your skeletal system, not your heart beating and not your organs working, so it's skeletal. The support cells of the nervous system are called what? Myelin, dendrites, or neuroglial? It's going to be neurogly or neuroglial. Just think it starts with an N. Nervous system starts with an N. Neuron fibers are called axons and dendrites. Tissue wasting because of decrease in cell numbers is called atrophy. So this is like when your muscles atrophy. The fibers that conduct a nerve impulse toward a neuron cell body are called dendrites. Connective tissue would probably not contain fibroblast, collagen, goblet cells, or matrix. The answer is goblet cells. The meninges contain connective tissue. Endocrine glands secrete hormones. Connective tissue that connects two bones is a ligament. Another term for your skin is cutaneous membrane. Transitional epithelial tissue can stretch. Which of the following is an epithelial tissue membrane? Fascia, peritoneum, meninges, or synovial membrane? The answer is peritoneum. The term that refers to loose connective tissue is blood, cartilage, bone, or areolar. Pleura are examples of which type of membrane? Serous, synovial, mucous, or subcutaneous? Serous. The tissue that surrounds the heart is the perichondrium, periosteum, pericardium, or myocardium. Pericardium. New epidermal cells come from stratum basale, or basal. What is the keratin-filled uppermost layer of the epidermis called? Stratum corneum. What are elastic connective tissues and nerves especially abundant? Where are they abundant? In your dermis. Another name for hypodermis is subcutaneous tissue. Which glands secrete oil? Sebaceous glands. The maintenance of constant body temperature would be difficult without the actions of your eccrine glands. The sheath in which the hair develops is known as the follicle. Goosebumps on the skin are caused by muscles called erector pili. Deep pressure receptors are also known as Pacinian corpuscles. Which protein makes up hair and nails? Keratin. Which structure senses light touch? Meissner corpuscles. Which of the following is not a function of the skin? Breathing, excretion, sensation, or regulation of body temperature? The answer is breathing.